Have you ever smiled through an entire conversation, only to spend the rest of the night replaying every word in your head? Maybe someone raised their voice just a little, and suddenly your heart started racing. Maybe a simple text saying, "Can we talk?" filled you with dread before the conversation had even begun. Or maybe you've walked into a room where nothing seemed wrong, yet your body acted as if danger was everywhere. People around you might say, "You're overthinking." They tell you to relax, to let it go. But what if your mind isn't overreacting? What if it's remembering a language you never consciously learned? A language without words. A language made of silence, tension, avoidance, and invisible emotional wounds. That language is emotional trauma. And once you understand how it speaks, you'll begin to understand yourself in ways you never imagined. Most people think emotional trauma only comes from terrible accidents, abuse, or life-changing disasters. But the truth is, trauma isn't always created by what happened to you. Sometimes it's created by what never happened. The comfort that never came. The apology that never arrived. The safety you never felt. The love you kept waiting for. Emotional trauma often hides beneath ordinary moments like the hidden part of an iceberg. What we see on the surface is anxiety, anger, perfectionism, or people-pleasing. But underneath lies a nervous system that learned one lesson very early. The world may not be emotionally safe. Today's journey isn't about blaming the past. It's about becoming a detective of your own mind. Because emotional trauma rarely disappears. It simply changes its language. And once you recognize that language, healing becomes possible. Let's begin with the first hidden sign. Imagine carrying an invisible smoke alarm inside your body. The strange part? It goes off even when there's no fire. This is the first language of emotional trauma. Constant emotional scanning. Psychologists often describe this as hypervigilance, a state where the brain continuously searches for danger. Neuroscience shows that the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, can become unusually sensitive after repeated emotional stress. Instead of asking, "Am I safe?" it starts asking, "What am I missing?" Think about someone who receives a short message from their friend. Okay, that's it. Most people move on. But someone carrying unresolved emotional trauma may immediately wonder, are they angry? Did I do something wrong? Are they leaving me? The message never changed. Only the nervous system did. It's like living inside a lighthouse that never stops spinning. Every conversation becomes another wave to monitor. Every silence becomes another storm to predict. The hidden consequence is exhausting. Eventually, peace itself begins to feel unfamiliar. When life becomes calm, the brain almost expects something bad to happen. And that leads us to another secret language trauma often speaks. The second language of emotional trauma is wearing invisible masks. Carl Jung believed that people often develop a persona, the version of themselves they believe the world will accept. For someone with emotional wounds, that mask can become a survival strategy rather than a choice. Perhaps they become the funny friend, the perfect employee, the strong sibling, the one who says, "I'm fine," even when they're falling apart. Attachment theory helps explain why this happens. Children naturally depend on caregivers for emotional safety. If love feels conditional, if affection only comes after achievement, if vulnerability is ignored or punished, the child quietly learns, if I want connection, I must hide parts of myself. Imagine someone who apologizes every time they ask for help, or someone who laughs while talking about painful memories. They aren't pretending. Their mask has simply been worn for so long that it feels like their real face. The tragedy is that while the mask protects them from rejection, it also protects others from ever truly knowing them. The person feels surrounded by people, yet emotionally invisible, and that loneliness slowly creates another hidden pattern. The third language of emotional trauma is confusing familiarity with safety. Evolutionary psychology reminds us that the human brain values what is familiar. Unfortunately, familiar isn't always healthy. If chaos was normal growing up, peace can feel suspicious. If criticism was common, kindness may feel uncomfortable. This explains why some people repeatedly enter relationships that hurt them, not because they enjoy pain, but because their emotional radar mistakes the familiar road for the safe one. Imagine someone dating partners who constantly pull away emotionally. Each relationship ends with heartbreak, yet they somehow choose the same type of person again. It's like leaving one prison only to unknowingly build another with the same bricks. Freud suggested that people sometimes repeat unresolved emotional patterns in an unconscious attempt to finally change the ending. The hope is understandable, but without awareness, the story often repeats itself. The hidden consequence is devastating. People begin believing, maybe I'm just unlucky, when in reality, their nervous system has been reading an old emotional map. But perhaps the quietest language of trauma is also the hardest to recognize. The fourth language of emotional trauma is becoming disconnected from your own emotions. Some people cry easily. Others cannot cry at all. Neither automatically means weakness. When emotional pain becomes overwhelming, the brain sometimes creates distance from feelings as a protective shield. Cognitive behavioral therapy explains that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors constantly influence one another. When painful emotions seem unsafe, the mind often develops habits that keep those feelings locked away. Someone may throw themselves into work. Another endlessly scrolls through social media. Someone else keeps every minute of every day busy, not because they're productive, but because silence feels dangerous. Imagine finally sitting alone on a quiet evening. No notifications, no distractions, no conversations. Suddenly, sadness appears from nowhere. Except it wasn't nowhere. It had simply been waiting behind the noise, like a theater curtain hiding an entire stage. Trauma doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it patiently hides until life becomes quiet enough to hear it. The good news is this: understanding the language of trauma is only the first chapter. The next chapter is learning a new language altogether, the language of healing. Healing doesn't begin when your past disappears. It begins when your relationship with your past changes. The first principle is learning to listen before trying to fix yourself. Many people fight every uncomfortable emotion. They say, I shouldn't feel this. But psychology shows that naming emotions reduces the intensity of the brain's threat response. Researchers have found that simply identifying feelings activates areas of the brain involved in emotional regulation. Instead of saying, I'm broken, try asking, what is this emotion trying to protect? Imagine feeling anxious before meeting someone new. Instead of criticizing yourself, you pause. You notice your heartbeat. You recognize the fear. You gently remind yourself, my body is protecting me based on old experiences. That small moment transforms you from a prisoner into an observer. And observers make better decisions than frightened survivors. The second principle is creating safe relationships, not perfect ones. Healing rarely happens in complete isolation. Mirror neurons help us understand why. Our brains naturally respond to the emotions of people around us. Calm nervous systems can help regulate overwhelmed nervous systems. Imagine opening up to a trusted friend who simply listens. They don't rush to solve your problems. They don't judge you. They stay present. For perhaps the first time, your brain experiences something unfamiliar. Vulnerability without punishment. Little by little, the old emotional blueprint begins to change. Not overnight, but conversation after conversation. Moment after moment. The third principle is allowing your body to participate in healing. Trauma isn't stored only in memories. It also affects breathing, posture, muscle tension, and stress responses. Simple habits like slow breathing, walking, stretching, or mindful movement signal safety to the nervous system. Picture someone taking a 10-minute walk after a stressful day. Instead of replaying painful conversations, they notice the sound of birds, the feeling of the wind, their footsteps. It seems small, but the brain slowly learns. Not every moment is a threat. Healing often begins with surprisingly ordinary moments. The fourth principle is rewriting the story you tell yourself. Many people believe, I'm too sensitive. I push everyone away. I'll never change. But these are often survival stories, not permanent identities. Carl Jung famously suggested that what remains unconscious continues to influence our lives until we become aware of it. Awareness gives you the chance to write a different ending. Instead of saying, "I always ruin relationships," you might say, "I learned certain patterns while trying to survive." One sentence creates shame. The other creates possibility. That difference changes everything. Because healing isn't about pretending the past never happened. It's about refusing to let yesterday become the author of tomorrow. Emotional trauma is a strange teacher. It convinces us to fear peace, to hide our hearts, to expect abandonment, to mistake survival for living. But hidden beneath every protective wall is something remarkable. The same mind that learned fear can learn safety. The same heart that learned silence can learn connection. The same nervous system that prepared for danger can slowly rediscover peace. Healing isn't forgetting your story. It's learning that your story has more chapters than your pain. As author Haruki Murakami once wrote, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Perhaps today isn't the day every wound disappears, but it could be the day you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as someone whose mind has been trying to protect you all along." If this video helped you understand yourself a little better, let us know in the comments which part spoke to you the most. If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and join us for more journeys into the human mind. Thank you for watching until the end. This is Mentera X. Keep exploring the hidden psychology of the human mind. I'll see you in the next video.